And I think one of the key things that we need to do is to continue creating amazing moments. No matter what is going on in our life, that we continue to create positive moments in our life, because whether the trauma is there, whatever's going on underneath, whatever's gurgling there, it's going to come up.
There is a reason that your brain is telling you that. It is not because it's the right answer. It is because there is distress. What is the distress that your brain is trying to communicate to you? And let's identify how to resolve the distress. And so I feel like one of the things that we talked about, there's so much talk about trauma in the world. There's tons of people out there talking about trauma and resolving trauma. And I think part of the problem is we don't really understand, even when people are talking about it, we don't really understand, how do I do that? Especially if it happened in your childhood, it's so interconnected and interwoven into who you have become, that how do you, I had this image in my mind one time when I was talking to a therapist of trying to figure out, morning glory, that the weed that like weaves itself around the plants and weaves itself around, and you don't want to pull out the plants and you don't want to pull out the beautiful flowers, but how do you unwind it so that you get the weed out that's trying to choke out everything that's good in your life? And so I feel like I'd like to, if you can, talk about how did you do that in your life? And you talk about it in your book beautifully, and some of the activities that you recommend. How do you identify how to kind of drill down to where's the trauma and how is it affecting me in my life, and how can I unwind that from my life without pulling out the roots of who I am, the roots of, who I am at my core. Does that question make sense? Or
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think the first thing that I will say is a decision to be honest with ourselves is key. And that's why spending those moments in the morning with ourselves, and I love the word that you used earlier, was information. Everything that is going on in our mind, in our body, in our heart, in our soul, it is information. And if we just don't judge it, we just look at it as information. And the sixth activity in the book, and I put it there very deliberately, and it is about creating a circle of interest, or what I used to call a happy basket with my children. And I think one of the key things that we need to do is to continue creating amazing moments. No matter what is going on in our life, that we continue to create positive moments in our life, because whether the trauma is there, whatever's going on underneath, whatever's gurgling there, it's going to come up. I remember as a young mom watching this family, and their child was really struggling. They had a teenager that was really struggling, and he was skipping school, and they would ground him, and they would do all these things. And then he loved to play the guitar, and they took his guitar away from him. And I remember thinking, why are you doing that? That's the only thing that child loves. And I remember when I got to be a mother of a teenager and I was butting heads with my teenager, I remembered that. And I kept having fun with this child. We had a family dog I would hike with. We would snowboard together. We just kept having fun, even though there was all of this really stressful stuff going on here too. This was all happening too, but we continued having fun together. And today, that child is one of my best friends. And I think that is key in our own lives. That morning glory, it's going to be there. Yeah. But to keep choosing and living from who I am, I'm a nurturer. That means I'm going to keep nurturing myself. I'm going to keep nurturing my husband. I'm going to keep nurturing my children. Lots of times when that morning glory comes up, we just stop, and sometimes it's just choking us. And I will tell you, I'm working with a woman right now who has been struggling so hard for so many years. She's had 30 admissions to the hospital in the last few years. And this is where we started. We started doing things that were giving her life, that were keeping this being, this person alive and wanting to be alive. Because those are the things that we stop doing. We stop doing things. Well, for one thing, the self beat up gets in our head. So then we think, oh, I'm not going to do nice things for myself. Well, that's exactly when we need to be doing the best things for ourselves. I have a scale in my book, and it's the how are you scale. And when I or anyone I'm working with goes below a 7, we start upping the self-care. We start doing more and more and more things, because I know a truth. If someone's living at an 8, 9, or 10, they are giving back. That's just part of human nature. When we are truly living our highest potential, we're giving back. And so when someone goes to a 7, then that's time to ramp up self-care. That's time for more fun. That's time to do things better for yourself. And I think that that's one of the things that people don't do. I did not used to do that. As soon as that morning glory starts to choke us, we literally stop doing things that are what we need the most.
Yeah.
So activity 6 for me in the book is so key, because adding things that you love into your daily life, because life never gets pain or problem free. It's always going to be there. So we have to be doing self-healing tools. We have to be doing things that we enjoy continuously. It's part of our life. It's part of our blueprint.
Yeah. And I want to talk, you mentioned something that I'd like to actually talk a little bit more about, which is your scale for self-evaluation, because that's one of the things that I talk about, how important it is for us to become self-aware. There are a lot of these challenges that we experience. We don't recognize we're in crisis until we're in crisis. Like, we don't recognize the path to crisis. We just recognize when I cannot get myself out of bed anymore, or I've ramped up into mania so bad that I am like doing crazy things, and so it's learning how to self-evaluate on a regular basis, just to check in and say, okay, where am I right now? And how do I care for myself in whatever state I'm in? So can you talk a little bit about that scale and how you developed that for yourself and what purpose that served? Because that was really a great insight. I love that in your book when you saw that. And it's something you introduced pretty early on.
Oh, I love it, because I love my how on my scale, because it is a simple way to communicate, especially when we're in crisis, because we don't sometimes want to go even a sentence into how we're doing if we're not doing well. But it's really easy to say, I'm at a 2, I'm at a 1. And I developed this scale years ago with my own child. This child was not a communicator. Actually, this child is hard of hearing. And so language and communicating were difficult. And so I said, okay, if you're a 10, just all you got to do is tell me if you're a 10. But if you're 1, all you got to do is tell me if you're a 1, and, everything in between. And it just became something that I used with this child on a daily basis. And then when I started working with clients, and then when my partner and my husband will ask me every day, how are you? Or I'll say, how are you? And it is, you intuitively know where you're at. You only have to use it once or twice, and then you're like, oh, I'm at a 7, or I'm at an 8. And you begin to really know, what does that mean for you? And it's interesting when I'm working with people, I'll start with people who are at a 1 or a 2. They are at the edge. And within just a very short amount of time of self-healing, of implementing their self-healing toolkit, implementing things that they love to do, within a very short amount of time, they're at a 5 or a 6. That's just normal. I expect that when somebody starts taking care of themselves physically, when somebody starts really honoring their personal guidance system, when somebody really starts living from who they are, they automatically start to raise.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it goes. And I think it's such an amazing scale for parents and children.
Yeah.
I think I love it with parents and children. I love using it with people I work with too, but I really think it's a great scale for parents and teenagers.